Hello and welcome to Audionautic Deep Space Network, episode 158. This is the Independent Musician's Guide to Production and Promotion. And this week we're talking about the new KO2 update. Massive changes to the KO2 have come, addressing a lot of concerns for those that were interested but felt some of its limitations might be stopping, which we'll talk about in a moment for someone that was convinced. And then we're going to discuss the round robin, which is our weekly discussion topic. And we're going to talk about structuring studio sessions. Do we have any routines, warm-ups? Do we try to avoid distractions or have ways to, or do we just embrace the chaos? My name is Sunwarper, and with me today is Eonlake. What's up?
What is
I didn't
up?
say it.
Yeah.
I didn't say anything. I didn't say it. I'm leaving it up to you.
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I'll save that for a bit later on, but yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
doing more
We'll
of the
get there,
same
I
stuff.
guess.
Yeah.
How's the live set coming?
It's good. It's good. I might yet change the order of the songs, but I'm more or less ready. I've been practicing a lot. My play tray's gone, and I've got my live rig over here at the moment now. So
Nice.
I've been putting in some hours practicing because it's stuff I haven't done before, and I've written controller functions for it, so I'm kind of getting used to where they are. So that
now, are you going to do any live keyboard stuff, or is it all triggering and CC and stuff?
I'm playing some of it. There's a mixture of stuff that I'm doing, messing around with effects and cross-fading things and chopping out some bits that don't work so well live, like noises before a part begins and things like that. So just general housekeeping, a bit of playing on top with I've got some soft synths and I've got the S1 rigged up, but with some remote control over it.
Nice.
So that I can tweak, cut-offs and things like that as I'm playing.
And how are you feeling? It's this coming weekend, right?
Yeah.
I hate to remind you.
I'm really looking forward to doing it. Yeah. I mean, I hate waiting, really. It feels like a long way away. I just want to get started, and then, unfortunately, because of the way it goes, it's over before you know it. And then, that was that then. So I'm trying not to let the severe time dilation that's involved in these things where it's like feels like forever until it comes and then it's gone in a moment. I'm going to try and pay attention.
All build up, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah. I mean, it's music in general, isn't it? It's a lot of waiting around.
Yeah.
That's one thing, though, that I love about live performance, at least for me, is like there's all that anxiety beforehand, right? All that build up, and it feels like it takes forever. And you're like, can it just be the day? Like, come on, let's get this going. But then when I'm up there, I just lose all sense of time. Like, it's just the flow state of just like being in that moment rather than like, I don't necessarily like it does go quick. I hear you, but it's like for a moment there's like, it's just jamming,
Yeah, although I find the flow state, it's not like when you're writing and you get in a flow state.
No, it's very different. It's a like performative flow state, I guess.
Yeah. And it's I don't know, it's weird.
Well, it's also a different use of the brain, right? Because you're not trying to write, you're trying to either replay something or like make changes to things and improvise and stuff. It's a very different flow state.
Yeah, and it's not the same level of muscle memory because when I used to play gigs before, I was just playing drums, and it's
you're out of your element, man.
It's dead, Whereas now I'm having to think about a bunch of different things at once and doing things a little more consciously, less by sort of muscle memory and feel. So it is different. But
do you think that's because your main performance expertise is coming from drums rather than doing this type of like producer workflow where you're just
it's the most comfortable I would feel playing an instrument.
So why not just bring the B drum?
Because I don't know that that's going to be particularly interesting.
I think that'd be awesome, man.
Me sat there in front of a synthesizer, like I'm at a piano recital, playing the song. I mean, great. But I forget his name. He's on Ghostly.
He's on the label Ghostly, but he plays. I saw him, I think, with Tycho or something. But he brings his drum set and then like a, launch pad or MPC, whatever, and he's like jamming on the hardware for a minute. Then he goes to the drums while the song's playing, plays the drums, and then goes back. Like he's switching between it. It's really cool because that live drum sound on top of electronics, it's just awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm not against the idea, but then again, I don't have a road crew. I have programmed some cymbals.
Well, Curtis is going to be there. Put him to work. Just put Curtis to work.
I don't know about bringing the whole drum kit this time, particularly. It's the sort of thing I would scale up as well, because the way I approach it is always start with just what you absolutely need and then sort of little augmentations and so on, so that everything is there as kind of, it's there because you've needed it for something. And, I would like to have my drums there, to be fair. It'd be nice to play
there
drums.
You go. I'd be very curious to see the difference in your take on that live performance, or not this one, obviously. It's short on time, but if you were to bring your drum set and incorporate drums, would you feel a little different about the flow state, being that you're kind of in your element for a little bit of it with those drums? I always bring my guitar because then I can always get in that element, I've got the guitar, which is my main, I know the guitar in and out, so if I need to, I can just move to the guitar and then I go into the tech stuff and the synths and the gear and all that. So
I think, but also maybe how much you feel the drums, what percentage of the track do you feel the drums are, are they just underlying everything else?
Yeah. I mean, they're rarely the feature, put it that way.
Yeah.
They're more supporting, things I could never be bothered to play because it's too simple, too repetitive.
Well, that's why in a live setting you embellish, get a gazillion ghost notes going, just ghost notes on ghost notes. And you've got it. But that's the cool thing. It's like that variation, that live variation of the drums, which is usually the base of a song, right? Like the rock of it. You can improvise it and change it. And it just, even if the song's the same as what the recording is, without the original drums, you're changing the tone so much, and the vibe of it. So, I don't know. It's just interesting.
The ability to completely change it if I want to take the drums out and completely replace them. But,
just stem split and mute. That's what I did for a video.
I've already got them separate because the way I bounce them out is, there are.
Who needs that? Get all the good artifacts, man.
So that you can take some out and replace it. I still want it flexible.
I'm gonna really quick. I'm gonna go to the chat because I'm gonna go work my way up on the chat because we've got some things that are relevant to what we're discussing now. David, one of our patrons, says drums bring dynamics too. Very much so. That's part of what I was trying to get at, is we can, when you're playing the drums, you can completely alter the flow of the track and what the track's doing. What could be the crescendo, if you kind of change the drums, could be something else. So yeah. Smiling Air says, this is where I feel drummers are at disadvantage. Guitars can strip most songs back to one instrument. That is true. That is true. Yeah, you can't really strip it to just the drums, because then it's where's the
Oh, there have been some amazing drum solos in songs.
No, for sure. For sure. But I mean, you can't just be here's this song,
not all the time.
And just play the drums, and you're wait, it could be similar drums to another song,
Yeah. There's no acoustic set for drummers.
Yeah. Crescent says Curtis is the crew. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Put him to work. He's gonna be there, Eonlake. He missed this episode. You got an hour of work he owes. So get him. Right. No, Curtis is traveling right now, so I'm just joking. But that does bring me to someone who's just completely ousted Curtis and taken his place. FCC, what's going on?
Yeah, good. All good. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, what you been up to?
Well, I've been getting the album mixed and over to you.
Yep.
And then after that,
being done.
Yeah, it feels nice actually.
It's a good feeling, right?
It is a good feeling. But now I don't quite know what to do. There's that
Sit
kind of
bask in its glory.
I don't limbo afterwards, where it's okay, what next? Where to go? What to do?
That's kind of the fun of it, though, right? You got a blank slate now. You can just figure out,
next part of the adventure. Yeah.
Well, any new gear, anything you're looking at?
No, not really. It's all been a bit quiet on the music front, just with work and family and life in general. So I'm just trying to. I feel like I'm thinking about it more than I'm doing at the moment, but that's not a bad thing, you know. Yeah. And I've got all these ideas buzzing around, and do I want to do that? Do I want to do that? Which way do I want to go? So, and I feel like, it's quite a good place to be.
Yeah, that's how it works, right?
Really love a bit more time in the studio at the moment.
Oh, I'm with you. That's where I'm at. I have no time in here, so it's like when I find the time, I'm just trying to make the most of it. I've actually been using kind of segueing to the EP-133, but I will do a better segue. But I've been using the P-033 quite a lot to just record samples and get that really nasty bit rate, because it's like 8 or something like that, and then send it into some other gear and mess with it, because I've been using the Seek track quite a lot, but the sampling on it is pretty limited. So what I'm doing is using another sampler, either the P-033 or Koala, to do the chops, then send whatever I've made of that chop as the sample I'm putting into the Seek track, and then I just have to sequence it right on the one and let it play. So but you get that nice kind of grit from the P-033. Now, Bit Cooker on Koala works in that way, but it's not the same. It's a digital kind of like, whereas this is a piece of hardware that's just making it sound gnarly. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. Anything else, FCC, you've been up to?
No, not really. No,
it's all right.
I mean, just studio time is like my main focus is to get back in the studio at the moment. Yeah. I just feel like I need to play, not necessarily record, just play.
The fun of it, right? Like get back to the fun rather than the pressure of like, I got to record this. I need to make a track, right?
I need to pick this thing up again and just get a beat going.
Drum and bass samples.
Yeah, some more drum and bass. Yeah, I do need to do that. Definitely need to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, sometimes just, sticking a drum and bass beat on, picking up the bass guitar, getting the S1 kind of warbling away in the background.
Yeah.
I mean, that I could spend hours doing that.
That's a good way to go. That's a good way to spend a few hours. Cresshead in the chat says P-033 is great, has that sound. Yeah, definitely. It's like if I want to get that kind of close approximation of the SP-202, which I don't have, I go for the P-033, And yeah, like Cresshead also adds, the mic in the P-033 is actually useful. Unlike the mic in my Seek track, that sounds nasty. I haven't tried the Seek track mic. I will have to. I saw a video of someone using it recording guitar, and it sounded like really good, but maybe they had an external mic plugged in or something. I don't know. Anyways, let's move over to the EP-133. Since we're talking about the P-033 and how awesome it is, which it is, we're going to talk this brand new 2.0 update. I think it's called Champions. The Champions update, the first major update for the EP-133. And I was originally going to preface this by saying none of us have the EP-133. So we're looking at this from, and I make mention again, originally was going to say this. We're looking at this from people who would be interested in buying the EP-133. And we're going to talk especially about how it holds up now with these features that weren't there and were requested and maybe should have been there, since some of them are kind of a big one. How does it compare to other samplers in a similar market, the P6, the SP-404? I think we can say the MPC-1, even though it's slightly higher in budget. And we'll make mention, when prices are higher and stuff. But as I was saying, we were going to look at this from people who were now interested in the EP-133, but someone, as I called last week, just decided right before we went live to go, oh, look at this. And I'm going to single them out right now.
Okay, all right, okay. It's me. But yeah, I think basically.
Can you show us it real quick? Just proof of purchase. There it is.
I think this update has kind of, well, for my mind, I had some reservations about it before. I like Teenage Engineering gear, but I don't know. It felt a little bit more like, in my head, like a toy, because it didn't quite compete on a number of levels. If you think about, what Roland have done, is it the P1? Is it
P6?
P6. Yeah. I mean, it's tiny. It does a hell of a lot, and
it's
I really like the approach that they took with the KO2, but I just thought with some of the limitations of it were just a little bit too much. And they seem to have listened, because they have actually, the polyphony was a big one for me. I mean, it's all about being able to layer it, and to my mind, samplers recently have become a lot more useful because of the increase in storage that you get on them, because of the miniaturization that's gone on for the last 10 years. So you used to be so limited on old Akai's and things like that, and you had to expand them as much as you could, but you still had to sample at a high pitch and then drag it down again to save space and all the rest of it, which is kind of cool and gives a sound. And that's a whole rabbit hole we could go down anyway, talking about that. But it's almost like the days of that are supposed to be over now. And that, if you look at the stats for the 404 Mark II, you've got silly sample times for stereo, you've got really good polyphony. All of these old school limitations are kind of falling away. And to my mind, the KO2 still looked like it was exhibiting a bunch of them. And, I didn't think it was worth it for that reason. But very cleverly, they've come along, they've introduced a song mode, they've dealt with the polyphony and effectively kind of doubled it. And that makes a big difference in my head. Now it's like a small, small device like the P6 that you can use away from the studio. It does enough to actually build a relatively fully formed idea that can then get fleshed out or transferred to another device or whatever. But you want to be able to take it a certain amount down the road. If you can only just sketch out the most basic of ideas, then what's the point, So I think it's a pretty meaningful update. And I think where it moves the line from and to is going to be quite critical for, people like me and how they think about it.
Yeah. So let's talk what's come in the update. And really quickly, I'm going to see if I can just share this page. Sorry, I have to do this all myself with Curtis not here. So you got to give me 1 second. I apologize. But if I go back over to here, there, you guys are seeing that now? So the 2.0 update. I like the kind of graphics they added. It's cool. But so they've added resampling, which I was shocked that wasn't there from the get-go. I mean, as a sampler, for me, like one of the, I mean, the what is it? I always get the two confused, but the P-033 didn't have it. But I mean, come on, it's like a $100 little, almost a toy, but lots of fun and actually quite useful. But like, I can make concessions when it's $100, but for something that has all these features that they added, I was like, that's an interesting one to not have the resampling, especially given all the effects that they added and things, because that's like the fun of a sampler. And the chopping and all that. So they've added resampling. Say again, Eonlake?
I think it must have been on the roadmap. They just hadn't implemented it in the early code. I find it impossible to believe they were never going to do it. I think it just took them a while. But that's just.
But it's interesting that it wasn't there right at launch. Like you would think.
Yeah, because that's a huge.
Even like the P6, which is $220 instead of $300, has resampling. So it's like it's a good. It's just something that a sampler typically like you want to have that because you make these chops and you go, but that would sound cool with the 2 effects. So let me resample with 1 effect baked in, and then I'll put another one. So things like that. They've also added a song mode, which is cool. So you can chain things together to create songs. The P6 does not have something like that. Huge difference there. Hands-free sampling, again, something you would think would be there from the start, but the P-033 didn't have this either, to my knowledge. You had to hold record when you were recording. So they've added hands-free sampling
with an automatic input volume. It won't start sampling till it hits that. But you still had to hold the button down. That's nuts.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It was crazy.
So they say just hit shift and hold a pad, and the KO2 will do the rest. MIDI sidechaining. Now this one's huge. MIDI sidechaining is fascinating and something pretty much a lot of these other samplers that do not have the SP. It's been something requested for the longest time. P6 by proxy, being similar to the SP, also requested. I would assume the MPC-1 has sidechain because it's basically like a DAW. But I don't know about that. But so they've added it via MIDI, which I think this is such an interesting way to do it, where the MIDI notes trigger the sidechaining, at least from the way I'm understanding it, that should definitely be possible in samplers like the SP and the P6. So it's an interesting way of doing the sidechain. So hopefully we'll see these other companies try to do something similar. They've also, as Eonlake said, increased the polyphony. It was 12 mono, 6 stereo, now 16 mono, and I guess still 12 stereo, if I'm reading that right. And then larger note intervals, you can do 1/1, 1/2, and quarter timing intervals. And then there's more MIDI through. And then I saw, I think it was Cresshead. Where is it? If this is true, which I don't have any reason to disbelieve it, but Cresshead says, undocumented feature KO2 now imports reduced frequency samples like 11, 16, 22, and 32. That's cool. But does the read sample do it? Because I love on the P6 how you can choose like I want this to be 11 when I resample it. I love that. For one, you get more length and stuff.
Yeah. I don't think you can choose resample.
It adds that charm. It adds that charm. Now we still have to deal and contend with the sample space, storage, and length. So I believe, and this is just from what I'm reading, samples can be 20 seconds in length. Is that correct, Eonlake, to your knowledge?
I think so.
Yeah. So that's something, which we'll do some comparisons later. And then it's 64 MB of space, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the only one that still really sticks out for me. And it's particularly, let me just hold this thing up. It's particularly daft because they put it on the front, right?
You want to put that up to the camera, right?
64 meg.
Yeah.
You know, if I said 64 gig, I'd have understood you putting it on the front. But 64 meg, I don't know. That feels like, you know, not a lot for 10 years ago, let alone now. And
thing is, memory is so cheap. I mean, it's, you know, why not stack it full for pennies, you know?
I understand they're trying to balance costs and all the rest of it, but I think that's just, it's really feeling like it's listing. I mean, now, especially that they've addressed a bunch of other things, it's looking like a big Achilles heel. It's just an odd choice, really an odd choice. And maybe there's a reason for it, but
I'm sure there is. And if nothing else, I mean, you know, a lot of amazing music was made on samplers a long time ago that had similar, even less, you know, much less. And so,
I mean, if it was like,
and limitations are sometimes good to work around. Like Cresshead even mentions, just let me mention this, Eonlake, but Cresshead even mentions that, you know, with resample, and this is on any sampler, this is a trick you can do. You can do that double speed trick and then drop it in pitch and stuff like that. So there are workarounds, which, like, again, these limitations can create these creative workarounds that can actually color the sound and do things like that. I will say, I think the P6's max time at the highest sample rate is like 20 or 30 seconds per sample in mono, and then stereo is always less. So I keep bringing up the P6 because it is in a similar price point. It is somewhat similar with its polyphony, the voice count, and things like that. So the P6 is cheaper. It is about $80 cheaper. So I think there's something there. 220 versus 300, especially right now, does make a bit of a difference. You know, I did see on Amazon they had refurbished in excellent condition for like $254 for the EP-133. That's a pretty good price for given everything they've added, and even before they added this stuff. I think that's pretty cool. Now, have you had much time to work with it, Eonlake, to mess around with it?
No, it's a weird little thing, and surprise, surprise, it's a bit weird. It's teenage engineering. I've not really got to grips with it yet. I've written a few little beeps, and in order to learn basic things about, you know, unit system structure and things like that, and how to navigate. But it's very early days, But
yeah, well, how have you found it?
It's It's a little bit curious, but it's its own beast. They give you a card in the box that's got a cheat sheet with various useful bits and pieces on, but it's still something that'll take you a little while to start mastering. But I think one thing that it has going for it is the user interface. You know, the buttons, they are velocity sensitive. They do have some travel on them. Yeah, it looks like a beat calculator.
But, so does the SP though.
Yeah, I mean the punching effects are fun. You know, the fader's kind of useful for certain things. It's all very tactile and nice to work with and highly portable. So, you know, these are the things that I obviously like it for. I'm not expecting it not to have any limitations. I just expected them not to be showstoppers. If it were like a, you know, proper like £1,000 synthesis sampler, I would not be expecting any limitations of any kind, you know, memory, storage, any of that stuff. But because it's a small form factor, portable, gadgety type sampler, I'm expecting, you know, quirkiness, funny effects, charm, you know, maybe from its limitations, as you say, in sound quality and so on, you know, things that you can work with and use. And I think largely that's kind of what it represents, so certainly to me. It sits nicely alongside other things, like you say, the Roland version, or you know, it's bigger friends that it's going to have here. But
yeah, I think it's important. Sorry, go ahead, Eonlake.
No, it's just it'll give me a chance to pair it with other things and do a fair bit with just a couple of little boxes, you know.
Yeah, and you mentioned, you know, comparing it, or if it were a $1,000 sampler, like the things. I think it is important that we take a look at some comparisons with the SP-404, because that's only what, 150 or 200 bucks more, and there are quite some differences. But before that, I do want to just mention a quick correction. I think I said the max at the full sample rate on the P6 is like 20 seconds, and I meant to say at the lowest sample rate in mono, it's like 20 something. As Chris had said, the max sample time at the full rate is 5.6. So there are some things, but again, 80 bucks difference in that, and you get all those different sample rates you can mess with and stuff. Me personally, on the P6, I never sample at the high rate. I go to the lowest because I love the sound, or the medium ones. But before we talk a little bit about the SP compared to the EP-133, FCC, any thoughts, anything you want to add to this?
Well, I don't really have any experience with teenage engineering stuff, but I always like the look of it, and like I quite fancy the OP, just because of the keyboard and the kind of the way it works and the kind of 4-tracky stuff on there. But it always looks really good. But I've watched the video about the update on the KO. And it just sounded like you needed a PhD in menu diving to be able to work it. And I think I'm maybe a little bit adverse to that kind of thing because of the time it takes to learn it and get to the point where you feel like it's a creative instrument, rather than an instrument that you're learning to kind of manipulate. And I think maybe that's because I don't have a lot of time, and actually, you know, what I want is turn something on, twiddle some knobs and get some noise. And I feel like with something like that, without weeks of, you know, learning the menus and having the cheat sheet cards next to you and working with it for a long time, that I'm never going to get to that point of it being creative. But I love the look of them, and I would definitely, if somebody wanted to give me an OP to play with, that'd be great. But for me at the moment, it's, you know, it's a lovely expensive toy that I'd love to have the time to use.
Yeah, I hear you. I after the update, I was like, you know, I really like what they've added. It's definitely something that I would eye now. I mean, I love the P-033, and that thing is insanely limited. but it's a fun little idea starter or just for sound design. Now, this one I don't think falls under as much of the sound design, but a lot of what they added makes it a kind of nice in between like a bigger, more expensive sampler and then, you know, that more like, I don't want to say toy, but like the P-033 type where like you just, you know, there's limitations, but you just enjoy making stuff on it. And I've heard some crazy stuff on the P-033 from like on Reddit and YouTube and stuff. So like it's not impossible to make full tracks on that for sure. But you know, it is very limited. The P-033, this isn't the EP-133. So Eon, like, do you have anything else you want to add, or do you want to compare with the SP-404 real quick before we go into
just one thing that I noticed, and that's why I got one, is that the resale value of these seems to be, you can get them relatively cheap, which is, you know, I saw a really good deal.
Did you get yours used, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah,
cool.
Absolutely. It's very good nick, and it's £140 off retail. So, I mean, it's not that expensive to start with, comparatively.
Yeah.
So that and the update, I thought, ooh, that actually looks quite different now.
Yeah. Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's you can battery power it, right? With like 4 AA's or AAA's or something.
Yeah, there's this panel on the front that is boasting about 64 meg that just lifts off and there are batteries. But
how many batteries does it need? 4?
Yeah, 4 AAA's, the little pencil ones.
Okay. So the SP, I've never used batteries in the 404 Mark II.
I did once.
It takes 6 AA's. That's huge. I use a power bank or, you know, USB-C or just the power to do it. But yeah, just wanted to mention that. So anything else, Eon, like in your first impressions of it?
No, not really. Not yet. It's kind of what you expect it to be, though, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Cresset says 4 batteries lasts around 20 hours for his EP or their EP-133. So that's cool. All right. So let's talk a little bit with the SP, because again, I've seen the SP around 450, 460, but I think it retails at 500, but you can probably get it for a lot lower. Things that the SP has: 32 voice polyphony, sample rate at 48, 37 effects, and then input effects as well, 16 input effects, 17 pads if you count the sub pad as a 17th one. It does take SD cards, which from what it sounds like the EP-133 does not. And then it's got 16 minutes per sample, and you have 2,560 samples. That's 16 samples for 10 banks, and you get 16 projects of 10 banks. I mean, and that's not including what you can do in the SD card. The SD card you can't actually like play in real time, but you can hold a ton of samples and then move things in.
The SD card wasn't great to start with, but they upgraded it, and now you can get
they've even added export patterns as stems into the SD card and stuff. There's some really cool stuff they've added with that. It's also got the skip back function, which you can capture, I think it's 25 or 40 seconds of the audio that you're doing in the SP, and you can set that to either be only external instrument, so whatever you're playing inside the SP, like sequences, samples, it doesn't record, or you can set it to everything, so whatever you play, you can it just records, it just keeps recording. I think it was Ricky Tinez on a YouTube video was doing something where he was putting like external instruments through it and then jamming on the Digitact or Octatrack, and then would just take those things he played in the SP, turn that into a sample, move it over. It's a cool little workflow with that.
Well, he was initially recording it as a pattern and then bouncing the pattern as a sample, and then somebody, dude, you skip back. It's so
it's funny because I never use skip back anymore. I just use a looper. I just have Mark set to looper. So yeah, and then if we talk storage space, now I'm not actually sure if this is the right amount of internal storage on the SP. I need to double check, but from a quick search, it says there's 16 gigs of internal storage compared to the 64 MB of the EP-133. So for 150 to $200 more, that's a big jump. I'm no mathematician, but Eon, like you can do the math or just say it's pretty large.
Yeah, I mean, it is a huge jump. I think that's where things get serious, and all that stuff I was saying about, you know, the old limitations that you used to have with samplers just sort of not being relevant anymore. I mean, obviously they are to a certain extent, as you'll see in the chat, but almost all of them are gone.
So you have both, Eonlake. You have an SP-404 as well,
Yeah, the SP-404 is portable. I mean, it is, but it doesn't feel
Not
quite
quite
as portable as this
for
as
sure.
the P6.
For sure. The one nice thing with the P6 is it's got internal battery. So I like that.
And they last as well, don't they?
Yeah, I never really run into many. I used it at NAMM to record all of the it was my interface basically, and like I'd record things into it and stuff, and I never had any issues with stuff like that. I was recording all the when I met with Roland's Yamaha, all that. It works really well. The mic on the P6 is surprisingly decent too, at least I find. And again, I'm not comparing this to be like this is what the EP-133 lacks or anything. They're their own separate beasts and stuff. It's just interesting, we talk comparing to the P6, which is a little cheaper. Well, let's compare it to something that's a little more expensive and just see the differences, just to talk the differences and stuff. Again, that if it's right, the 16 gigs that I mentioned is internal. You can obviously on an SP put an SD card and you can get massive ones and stuff. So there's that. But yeah, like MW Fizz says, I dislike that you can only go 7 semitones up and not 12. I think if you change the sampling type from that vinyl one to the old school SP one, I think you can go higher, but I might be wrong. But there's two ways to do pitch and speed on the Mark II. You can do it the new way that goes pitch and speed together, and then you can separate it where it's pitch and speed are separate, but you get a lot more artifacting when you do it that method or that way. Yeah. And it's got an amp for guitar.
Yeah.
Which is really good, surprisingly. I don't even use my amps anymore. I just go right into the SP. That's my amp sim now.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that there are a bunch of samplers that are around the KO2 level where they are kind of a little bit limited. They've all got their pros and cons and so on. Then there's a huge step up for very reasonably not that much more money to the Mark II and things like that. And then suddenly, apart from just being a much better sampler on paper with storage and polyphony and all the rest of it, it's also a lot more flexible as an instrument, a bit of kit, because it's also a sound card, it's an effects box,
the sound generator too,
potential way of DJing songs as well as alongside all the rest of your stuff. I mean, it does give a lot more. So yeah, it's fair to say you get these little gadgety portable things, and then suddenly there's a whole new level. I think.
Yeah, totally. I think the EP-133 is like, now with that update, now that they've added resampling, I'm like, okay, if I ever have like budget permitting or something, I would definitely at least grab a used one like you did, Eonlake, because I think it would be really cool. And every sampler does something special. They all do, or they do multiple things special. And like, if nothing else, the difference in workflow can cause kind of different songs to be made. Like you work differently with things and stuff. So again, I don't do these comparisons to be like, this one's worse. It's not like that. It's cool to look at the specs. It's cool to talk the differences. And then if you're looking for something that does X, Y, or Z, then you can, or Z. Sorry, Eonlake and FCC. I'm outnumbered here as the American, so I have to say Z, I guess. But then you can look at what these specs offer and go, okay, yeah, I do need a lot of sample time, so maybe we'll go with the SP, or no, I don't really care about that. I want the limitations, or I want what the EP-133 can offer, more portability. Then that's the way to go.
You might have a small groove box that you're using and thinking, well, I can't get enough done with this. It makes great sound, but I can't really get enough done. But bring along a small portable sampler as well, and suddenly you can do a hell of a lot more with it by just sampling it and stacking it up in there, and then playing something else along on top.
I got one question for you, Eonlake. Well, I'll probably have more later, but does it do audio over USB? Do you know?
I don't know, actually. I don't know yet.
That for me is huge now. All of the compacts do that. Seek Track does it. Tracker does multi-audio over USB.
There's an industry standard for 2-channel audio over USB. I would like to think it at least does that, but I don't actually know.
Well, maybe Cresshead. Oh man, Cresshead says I was going to ask him. No audio over USB and KO2. That's a bummer. Because for me, like when it comes to when we're talking portability, if I want to record things into my iPad, right, just audio over USB into Logic.
On that point, I've been using that on the S1 as part of my live rig, and I've been having problems with Ableton and the audio over USB on the S1 just bombing out, and it will not resume, even though the MIDI still works.
Sounds like an Ableton issue. No, I'm just kidding. That's what you get for using Ableton and Eonlake.
Yeah, use Reason. Just use Reason.
Consequently, I'm using the analog out on it.
Yeah, no, I get you. I have an issue on the 404 where sometimes it'll just have this latency drift. Like it'll be working perfectly, no latency, right? And then all of a sudden I start hitting pads and it's like nothing. And then right before I hit the next pad, it comes like 2 seconds later, 3 seconds later. Ooh. So then I just have to change the, like set in Logic, set it to something different, set it back to it, and it works. But yeah, that one's weird. But it doesn't happen a lot. And I don't know if it's, I was talking to some software designer, and they were like, "Oh, maybe your computer goes to sleep, and when it comes back, like the Macs, that can be an issue with some gear." I don't know if that's it, because I swear the last time it did it, it hadn't been put to sleep. But yeah. So yeah, I know what you're saying. It's not always perfect.
Can you? You just can't.
But not if you're audio over USB is just really handy. Like for me, going and doing recordings or something, like less cables, less need of stuff, or like the SP can now be my amp sim, my audio interface, and my sampler and sequencer when I'm like out, trying to perform something, so yeah. Cress had mentioned that because it doesn't have the USB, that's why they got the Seek track. The only thing for me, again, the SP is the same way, the P6 is the same way, just stereo 2-track over USB. I really hope we start seeing more that do multi-track audio, because the Tracker does it and it's awesome. The Digitac does it with Overbridge. I think Digitone even does it.
Proprietary again, isn't it?
Yeah, Overbridge has some issues. So I've had a lot of issues with Overbridge, but when it works,
awesome. Your operating system's too old to support, then suddenly you don't have it anymore. I like it, but I don't want it taken away.
The Tracker one, the Tracker one is just right when you connect it. You can just do all multi-outs. It's really cool. It's really cool.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, like if you just go into Logic or your DAW and just say like what output you want, you get like 64 outputs or some crazy amount that you can do stereo, mono, whatever. I'm like, if we could see that, even 2 stereo outs from the SP with like bus 1 and 2 and bus 3 and 4, or bus 1 and bus 2, like, man, it would be so cool to have that.
Yeah.
But we dream. We'll see. Maybe that's what Mark III will be if that's ever, announced or something. But yeah. Anyways, is there anything else you want to talk about regarding the EP-133, or we'll move over to our next topic?
I've got one very quick question. So, Eonlake, as somebody that's got an SP-404, and I know you haven't used the KO2 very much, but are they comparable, or are they completely different beasts altogether?
For me, I find they're pretty different. But they have one similarity in the sense that they kind of do things their own way, and you need to learn that way.
I thought you were going to say they look like calculators.
But they both look a bit like calculators.
So it's almost like finding which one gels with you, really.
It's the TI-83 versus the 84.
I think it's more about, can you gel with it? Because it's what it is, in both cases. And does it work for you or not? I don't know. You could argue that one has, there's more reason to learn one than the other because of the amount it gives back. But yeah, they're both their own beasts, and they do have their own strengths and weaknesses, for sure.
Yeah. Now, I didn't do much comparison with the MPC for this because none of us have an MPC. I've actually had no experience with the MPC, but Cresshead says their little comparison would be MPC equals crazy, SP-404 equals useful, KO2 equals creative. The one thing I would say with the MPC is when it comes to the new MPCs, like the live and I forget the big one. There's the big one. Here. Yeah, you've got the live 2 or whatever, I think, but there's that bigger one too that I'm blanking on the name. But they are definitely much more DAW-like in their workflow
and that's
now.
what I really don't like about it.
So
what I like
when it
about
comes to go ahead, Eonlake. I was just gonna say with the SP and EP-133, they're both like DAW-less-ish. You know, they might have screens and you can read things and stuff, but like everything you do is a lot more tactile. You're not just like, oh, I'm on this touchscreen, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but if you're sick of the DAW, it's like, well, you can go, you know. That's like me. I don't want to be in the DAW a lot because I have to do that for
you could argue with the MPC that it's the same thing, but with a better quality screen. Particularly if you're not using the DAW functions of the MPC.
Yeah, that's true. You could avoid those.
The values that you're changing with the knobs and actually giving you visual feedback on that. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of like the DAW kind of approach on a sampler.
Yeah.
And I did find it really hard to get to grips with the workflow on that. And I totally agree with, was it Cresshead? That I totally agree with Cresshead. Like MPC was hard for me to get my head around. 404 was its own thing, but learnable, and this KO2 seems to be pretty immediate so far.
Oh, that just popped up here. Sorry. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, that's good. So.
Yeah, that's kind of a way to put it too. But it is still just like, for me, it's like when I see those, I would love to check those out too. I'm just saying, like, typically I don't want to be in a DAW when I'm in a sampler. Now I could completely be wrong when I try it and go, no, I completely love it. Like sometimes having those extra things of like getting in, changing the filters and stuff, it's awesome. But I like the immediacy of not having all those options. Like when I'm in a DAW, I have that, and that's great. But sometimes it's like too much, and I just want to create and not overthink it. So being able to just resample and then, oh, that's baked. You just got to move forward. You know, like that's the way to go. But that's just me, and I still use a DAW all the time.
Yeah, the screen on the MPC is good for chopping, but I had better results chopping on the 404.
Yeah, interesting.
Quicker and easier.
That's what I mean. It's like every
that the screen's not as good, you know.
Every sampler's got a workflow, you know.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move over. I see Asaph Stripe is in the green room. I'll bring you in just a second, Asaph Stripe. But this show is brought to you by our patrons who help support the show. We are about due for the StreamYard update, or the StreamYard yearly subscription, which is how we do our streaming. Now they've upped it just about double. So the things we could do, where I can do this type of stuff. Got to show Eonlake. Go to FCC, right? Change our things to here. Sorry if I'm making you nauseous with all these changes. I'll keep it here for a second. But doing that type of stuff, sharing all of the comments that we do, things like that, that's all because of StreamYard, and they're basically budgeting us out. But with our patrons' support, we're looking for other alternatives. But yeah, we are doing a bit of a, what do you want to call it? Crowdfunding. So if you want to help support the show, head to Patreon, or you can do the PayPal link should be in the description. Curtis scheduled this one, so if not, I'll put it up after. If you just want to make a donation, if you like the show and just want to help us keep the lights on, so to speak. But yeah, our patrons help us week in and week out, getting gear, getting all that type of stuff, keeping the lights on like this. But at different tiers, you get different things. You get the exclusive Discord channels. You get a monthly hangout called Starstream, where we talk all about the gear. We help everyone. We all kind of discuss things we're struggling with or loving at the moment in terms of our workflows and gear that we're using, stuff like that. So if that's of interest, you can head over to patreon.com/audionautic. That link is in the description. And at the $5 tier, you can come on the show. So Asaph Stripe, if you're game to hop on, give me a thumbs up if you're good. Yep, he's good. All right, let me bring him on. What's going on? How are you?
Good. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we got you.
Hey, everything's working. Long time no see. It's good to see everybody.
How have you been?
Not bad. Yeah.
Cool.
You know, not a ton of recording, but definitely a lot of studio redesign and kind of different ideas. So maybe
that's perfect, because that's our next topic. Yeah, that's our next topic. We're going to keep it a little short because we're running a bit out on time, but I want to hear from everybody. So before that, let me just double check. Curtis wrote out the docket. I got to make sure if there's anything else. Next Star Stream, April 27th at 7 p.m. UTC, which is 11 a.m. Pacific. I'm going to put a Discord link, which is open for all. If you want to hop on, the patrons just get additional channels, but join our Patreon. You can continue the conversations. If you have opinions on gear that you want to share, head right over there. And yeah, we are looking for alternatives to StreamYard. So if anyone knows of any of those like streaming podcast type things, I think Eonlake or someone gave us one last week we're going to look into. But yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. They just decided to just up it double. Like the tier, they just upped it double. They've added some features and things like that, but it's like in 1 year they're just, we're just doubling it. So they've just effectively like phased us out of being able to be a part of it. So we're looking at some other ways, because we could do like just stream Streamlabs and stream the Discord chat, but there's all these issues with Discord, and we used to do that and there were tons of issues. We can't share the comments. We can't do things like I can zoom in on everybody, and do that type of stuff. So, and we don't get those cool outros with Trans-Pacific playing at the end. So, if you want to help support, that's there. But we are looking for other things. So if you know of any, let us know in the comments or chat. And thanks, Cresshead. Says, by the way, this is a really good show. Good takes on gear, workflows, etc. for people. So we appreciate it. It's always great to see you. But let's get into our last topic here. So this is the round robin, where we just all have a topic that we discuss, usually about gear or existential things as musicians. But today I thought we'd talk studio sessions. So I didn't know, this is kind of a interesting synchronicity, but basically everyone on today is not having a lot of time in the studio. And so that worked, because I selfishly made this topic because I was like, I don't have much time in the studio. So I've got to figure out like, how can I maximize my time? What do I do to do that? And I figured, well, why don't I ask everybody and see what they do? And I have some things too that I've been doing that I've been working. But that's what the point of the show is. Together we grow. We all learn from each other, and we can all take things and see if it works in our own workflows. So is the topic clear? Have I made it clear? We're going to talk routines, warm-ups, how you avoid distractions, if you don't avoid distractions, whatever it is. Does that all make sense, everybody? Just cool. Yeah. So, David, you want to start?
Well, I'll tell you, nothing helps more than a good plan. And a plan means, for me, usually doing some sort of recording, putting a deadline on it. Now, I've got kind of Ace of Stripes become a little bit more of a label now. So one of the things I like to do is, if I feel a little stuck, I'll go, okay, we're doing a compilation, right? And I get some artwork together or work with one of my partners, and put a deadline. And usually a few people get some submissions in, and so it's a little different process. So if I know that I can't maybe put in what I need to put in for 10 or 15 tracks myself, the compilation's a nice way for me to, okay, now I'm down to 1 or 2 tracks, but I'm still involved, and it's still very creative, and I can since I kind of lead it, I can be as involved as I want. You know what I mean? I can put more tracks in, or make it a little bit more interesting. So for me, that's probably one of the most important things I do, is just kind of come up with a good plan on achieving something, so I can otherwise it just gets too chaotic. I need something to feel that I was productive at the end of the day. So
I get that. Get that. That works. Yeah. I always try to make like a plan, and then I just remember no plan makes it past the point of departure. So if something strikes my, interest, I'll kind of segue over to that. But yeah, I always like to have a plan going in. Any other things you do? Oh, go ahead.
I wish I was that organized. I mean, that sounds like to get to that point would be heaven. But yeah, I'm far more chaotic.
I'm very chaotic too, so I appreciate that. I do have another friend, Kosmikos, who helps me a lot, and we seem to work well together on pushing each other in the right ways. But I do. So that, for me, that's one of the most important things. I will say, my kids are getting a little older now, but that definitely changed me, and that got me a little more structured.
Yeah, that's what happened to me.
Yeah, I do like to be a little more a lot of intention when I come down. I'll already know what my expectations are for myself so that I don't go in real stressed out. So some days are just not about coming in and being productive and making music that I'm going to record. I'll say, why don't you go down, pick the sub 37 or something, and just kind of explore it for however long you can. And that's all you're going to do today. Right. So there's a lot of head games going on, you know, because it can, a few months can go by and you can start to like, oh man, I haven't done this or I haven't done that. And so, I mean, that's the best we can do that I can think of, you know, getting a group that kind of finding a few people that maybe push you in the right way. Cresshead, if he's still in the chat, we're good friends. He's been on the compilations. He's great at pushing me. Get on with it. Yeah. He's a get on with it type of guy. And the best of ways. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Cool. Well, thanks for sharing it. That's good. I'm with you 100%. When I had, when like life changed when my son was born, and I have like no time, and a lot of like my job is to do music and stuff like that. And so even then I got to be a dad first. And so it's like, well, where can I work it in? That's where the EP-133 came in handy. It's like, well, if I could get these, or Koala, it's like find little things that can work, like smaller sessions, and dedicate it to, yep, at this point, I'm going to take a sample and chop it. And then if inspiration strikes, or if nothing's working, do like what you were saying, David, and just be like, well, I'm just going to hop on the guitar and just play. And maybe I'll just hit record, forget I'm recording, and just record. Like yesterday, I just recorded, I set a session player in Logic and just endlessly looped it, a piano bit, like an E-piano. And then I just recorded me hitting the drums, you know, playing drums for like 10 minutes. It was like, I can just find little segments of that at like 88 BPM or whatever. And now I've got loops I can chop up later, or, you know, stuff like that. So that's what I've found. I find routines are good to have if you have the luxury, but it's also good to just be variable and be like, well, I can't do, you know, like even if I set that, it's like, okay, that's like my start point. But if I can't do something like that, yeah, I'm just going to move on. Eonlake, you're muted, but are you good to talk, or do you want me to go to FCC first? Yeah. You're good? Okay, let's hear from you, and then we'll go to FCC.
Well, firstly, I agree with everything both of you said. I like to have a plan. You know, I like to have a plan.
That whiteboard is calling your name.
Yeah, but I mean, the whiteboard could equally be something else. So, I mean, there are a lot of things about. I like to generate lots and lots and lots of ideas, and I like to write as much music as I can to pick the best from it. I believe very much in, you know, you need a lot of quantity to get to quality. But it doesn't have to be, I mean, it does introduce certain challenges in managing all those little bits of song, and how do you do that, and how do you figure out what you're doing next. And so I do list and track everything, not because that feels like a natural thing to do, but because there are so many bits, I'd just lose stuff otherwise, and that kind of undermines the idea of doing lots of it. So I do keep a sound file, always bounce it out at the end of the session, so that you know what you're talking about. So that one that sounds like that, and I listen and plan out of the studio so that if I do get any time in here, I already know what I want to do to each of the songs that I'm working on, that I've selected out of the many others to work on. But I mean, you know, you don't have to write on a whiteboard. You might be somebody who prefers to take voice notes or something and stick a voice note with the bounce out or something like that. You know, it doesn't really matter how you do it. It might be a notes app on your phone that you like using or whatever, but something that helps you track what you're working on, what you want to do next, really. But I would also say, you know, like you mentioned it yourself, Sunwarper, that it's good to have a plan. It's good to know exactly what you want to do. But then it's also good to throw that plan in the bin the minute something useful starts happening, you know, because, you know, things happen, you know, and they're not necessarily according to plan. You might be going in there going, well, I'm just doing the sound design today. I'm not recording anything. I'm just trying to make some good sounds that I'll save and keep for later. And a song starts happening, you're going to record it, aren't you? Of course you are. You won't go, oh, sorry, it's not in the schedule. I'm not going to do that. So yeah, you go with the flow, don't you?
Yeah, I was going to say, a plan is just like a path, right? So you might be walking along the path and all of a sudden it's flooded. There might be a legitimate reason that you say, okay, this is not going to work right now. I can get across, but it's going to be a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
And that work may not be what I need right now, right? Especially if you got other pressures.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Yeah,
but
that's
I do have a few rules that I don't like to break. So I mean, we know how we feel about rules. They're very useful. They're good to have, and they're also good to break. And the reason to define them in the first place is to break them. But I never edit and write new stuff in the same session. I just don't do that because they're very different things. And if you want to be creative, you want to hit flow and generate ideas, you mustn't be editing and criticizing. It's not about assessing whether it's good or not. It's about, tapping the well, getting it flowing. If you start to criticize, you'll kill it stone dead. So I always do one or the other as far as those are concerned, because they do prevent the other from happening. But apart from that, you've got to be flexible, mutable, see what's happening, and have a few ideas in your pocket to get yourself started in case, one doesn't work. And that's why I like to have a bunch of songs as well, because sometimes you're just not feeling one, you switch to another one, and things happen. You need to find what's working today or at that time of today.
Yeah. Well, FCC, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Eonlake just said really rings a bell with me, because I've tried to be regimented, like Wednesdays after the show, I've got a good few hours to do music. But then, like, if you're just not in the right frame of mind, or it's just not gelling, it's like, and then I'll, like, the following day, I'll think, I'll just go back to that at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and then suddenly, like, this track appears. I mean, I'm creative. My day job is a designer, so I completely get that. Where you feel like you're banging your head against the brick wall 1 minute, and then you sleep on it, and the next day it's just splurges out, and there it is. So I try and be a little bit more organic with my timing in the studio, because I know that when I'm in that creative flow, what I produce is very organic anyway. My music doesn't fit to any kind of regimented structure, or when I'm creating it is just the flow. And that's how it happens, and that's how I'm trying more to kind of step into the studio when the juice is flowing, kind of go with it. But it's really hard, because you never know when that's going to happen. You've got to have a starting point, and all of these things that everyone's talked about are really good starting points, and you've got to go in there. And sometimes I think, I have those starting points, and I get in the studio, and sometimes it's just not going to work, and you've just got to go, right, okay, fair enough. It's not there. I'm gonna do something else instead. I'm gonna just find, drum samples for the next time.
Yeah.
And then you've got, when it is flowing, you've got to kind of make the most of it.
Go ahead.
But it's hard, I mean, if you were in the studio all day, every day, none of this would be a problem, because if it wasn't happening, you'd go and do something else and then come back. And I saw a great video on YouTube of Fred again, who went away for a weekend retreat with a couple of his friends that he makes music with, and they literally spent the whole weekend knocking out ideas. And he said they did like 30, 35 tracks in a weekend, and like 4 of them were pretty good and 2 of them were bangers. But we've not all got that ability and that scope. So making the most of the time that we've got in the studio is tricky. I find it really hard, I have to say, to get those moments and be focused on what I want to do with the ideas that I want and the direction that I want. It's really difficult.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Especially as a solo musician, as Fred again's proven.
Yeah. Well, even Asaph Stripe, you know, he's got someone that pushes him along in the studio, and that would, you know, I mean, I've been in bands, and when you're in bands, that energy and drive that you get from other people is amazing.
Yeah, you only need you know, if there's 4 of you, 3 of you, the 2 of you are on it and 2 of you aren't, you know, you can the other 2 along, and it can almost be like a relay race sometimes. Yeah, there are a lot more challenges, I think, to working alone, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
I just want to read a couple bits of comment, and Asaph, if you're good, give me a thumbs up. I'll bring you back. Okay. So Smiling Earth says, if I start with a plan, I end up arguing with myself for hours about the right tempo. That's funny. And then let's see where else we got. Oh, apparently the first link I shared in the chat for the Discord didn't work, but I posted a second one, which I think is this one. And that one does work. MW just said, link works. Thanks. Let's see what else we've got. Crescent says, I have a notepad with me always. I like to use the notes app on my phone and just write like what I intend to do in the day. And then, you know, sometimes it can backfire, because then when I'm really backed up and haven't done it, you see that and you're like, I got nothing done. But I just delete it and move it to another day or whatever. And then I find the things that I did do that day and put those and check it off, you know, just to like still have that sense of like moving forward and doing stuff. And or like once everything's calmed down at night, I'll come out and just play like the drums or the guitar or the synth, and it's like, okay, well, I practiced music, like I did something, you know, like I did like a theory thing, or I got to start reading more sheet music, so I'll spend like 5 minutes just reading sheet music, playing it on the piano. But yeah, I guess that's similar to what MW Fizz says. If it doesn't work out, I play the guitar for a while and go back to the song, a little bit of a rest. And Eonlake, you can say what you said.
Just because they were saying in the chat that playing an instrument can help get your head in the right place, and it's good if it wasn't working, and it's good as a to try and,
or you find a cool chord progression, right? And you're like, oh, I'm gonna sample that right now, you know, like, oh, and then you just get like, I find for me, like all I need is that one bit of like inspiration for flow state. Like I find a cool sample, or I'm jamming and I go, oh wait, that's awesome, let me put that in the sampler, I'm gonna chop it up. And the next thing I know, I'm the drums are going on top, and I'm like making a song, and I had no, you know, there was no intent of it. It was just like I got in, like I tricked my brain into that flow state, and then
it could be one note of a particular sound, and then suddenly that's like, it. You're off.
Yeah, this chord's awesome. How can I finish this chord to like tell that emotion that I'm feeling? And then you're off, you know, and you go.
But at the same time, isn't that even more likely to happen if you're thinking, I'm not actually doing my session yet, I'm just warming up before it, playing a bit of guitar. I mean,
totally. The reducing that pressure. One of the other things I was gonna say we talk about today was, because I had a couple students that as soon as they hit record, they like can't get it the way they were playing it when they did in just like jamming out, you know, like they shot the sample, they found it. And I wanted to talk about that, like red light, whatever, I forget, but we'll talk about that in another episode, because I think that's equally valuable. But I was like, let's talk this first. Bit more of the comments, and then we'll say our last bits, and then we got to go. But B Jaminson's birth, first of all, hello. I think I missed sharing your hello part, but says I've been inspired to learn chords on the Push 3. Nice. Yeah, that thing looks awesome. Oh, this is good too. Then when I'm uninspired, I go live life. Definitely. Good way to put it. Crescent says, I noodle on bass or guitar as stuff cooks. I thought he was going to say as noodles cook, but you know, stuff works too. Let's see. MW Fizz for the instrument says, a more natural way to connect with music when you need to get in the mood. Definitely.
Totally.
Pete Jamin says, koala is my notepad. I get that completely. Yeah, it's like I can always open that and like just grab a sample and just start something, you know, or like just sing into it and chop that up.
I really need to use that more.
You got to try it, man, for sure. Like I found when those first couple months after my son was born, and I literally could not get in here, I'd have like 5 minutes and just like beyond Koala, because we've always got our phone or our iPad or something.
Yeah, I've got it. I've got everything on there.
Yeah, it's like okay, the kid's sleeping. Like rather than sleeping, I'm gonna sacrifice a couple bits of time when I'm older. Shave off a few minutes and just play Koala for a minute. And I guess it was good. I don't know, but it worked. And let's see.
Koala,
Crescent says, I love when stuff happens. It's the magic that keeps me making songs. Definitely. All right, gentlemen, we are a bit short on time. I do have to go, but is there anything quickly you want to add to this? Let's start with David, if you're good. I know you're muted, but if you're good.
I'm good. Yeah, well, you just saw life happen right there in real time, right?
It always does, man.
I always answer the phone if a kid or my wife calls.
Oh yeah,
that's rule one of life. It just reminded me. I will say one thing, Sunwarper. I remember I used to have an iPad that I had with me, and I'd be watching the kids. Like got to watch them. You're kind of like sitting there, and you're kind of interacting. You're kind of not. And I'd have my iPad, my looper, and I would get something like Loopy, and I would record them.
Yeah,
and sometimes sing a little bit. And I had a kind of a cool period where I was being very creative in a very different way. And I haven't gone back to it too much, but it was interesting to hear me create, like using my voice a little bit. And it was not how I typically wrote songs. So sometimes you got to take the studio with you a little bit, or just like you said, a little piece of it. But you definitely learn that micro bit. And last thing,
micro moments, man.
I'll end with this. More of a question. I guess at the end of the day, we got to ask ourselves, what are we trying to achieve? I mean, because if we're unhappy, then we're not achieving something, right? We've created some sort of expectation, but it can be very hard to understand what the expectation is, other than to feel like you're being a musician, you're being creative and artistic. I think that's really my goal, is just to feel like I'm being artistic in my life during that period, and how that manifests itself can change. So that's my last thoughts.
That's great. I'll just add one thing, and then we'll go to Eonlake and FCC and wrap up. But you were talking with like having the iPad and looping things and stuff. My son absolutely loves the P-033. Like, so he somehow programs it on it, because if you hit the record, whatever I've clicked, he starts just tapping it. And then I'll play it, and he dances to the like, I made these drums, and I've recorded him talking, and he sequenced him talking, and somehow was able to change the pitch on the different steps. And he's like 19 months old. He doesn't know what's going on, but he's doing it. Like, I think he's baking in the effects changes on the octave up and down after he programs it in, or he's like moving the pitch knob or something. But I hit play one time, like I hadn't used it. I think I was at work, and when I got home, like I just hit it, or he gave it to me, and I hit play, and there was this whole new sequence of him, like the recording that I made of him that was a sample. He was just moving, like it moved the pitch up, and it was like doing this melodic thing with different pitch changes over the drums I had made, and I was like, whoa! So I got to record that. So I have it.
There it is right there. Be like Luca. That's it.
I have no idea what's going on, and just play. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I just wanted to add that, because it's also just like, it's an amazing moment, like and like a thing, like a thing to have and to share. And I want to record that, because I want to show him when he's older and be like, this was your first song. It was actually awesome though. Like, it was really cool. I was like, whoa, this is cool. Anyways, Eonlake, any last bits you want to add before we bounce?
Just remove the pressure and stress. It's supposed to be fun. If it's not fun, why are you doing it? Try and enjoy it. It's a beautiful thing. Never forget that. Well, you will forget that. Just keep reminding yourself. That's all. Yeah,
or make a note. Like a voice note, whatever. Or written note.
Post it on your monitor. This is fun.
Yeah. Yep. FCC. What about you?
Just play. I think that's the thing, isn't it? Just play. Yeah. But I'm definitely, I quite like the idea of micro moments. So I'm gonna try over the next few weeks, because I know I've not got a lot of time. I'm gonna try micro moments.
That's micro moments TM. It's copyright. No, I'm just kidding. That's the Sunwarper special. No, I'm totally kidding. No, it's like, definitely just find those little moments, because like you said, for most, if not all of us trying to get in the studio, we don't have a lot of time. And so
it's why I bought the S1. So I need to get the S1.
Yeah. Plug it into Koala, get your headphones
in the garden.
And just go.
Yeah.
That's all you do. And just don't have any pressure. Like sometimes, having the routine, having a set schedule of like, I'm going to do that. But sometimes in your schedule, it should be, I'm just going to jam.
Yeah.
Just, like, I'm just going to see what happens, and just go. Yeah. All right. I want to say quickly hello to one of our other patrons, Thomas. No worries about being late. We're just happy to see you. It's been a minute, so it's great to see you. I think that's everybody. I apologize if we've missed some chat and stuff, or if you've put in something, just put it in the comments after or share it in the Discord. And we'll be back next week. I believe Curtis will be back with us. He's traveling this week. 11 a.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. UTC. ASF Stripe, great to have you come on. Please come on. You're always welcome. Come on whenever. And FCC, thank you so much for coming in and filling in for Curtis. It helps a ton.
No worries.
It means a lot. So it's great. And be jamming since birth, says hence the name. Been jamming since birth. Yeah, exactly. Nice. All right, guys. It's been great seeing you. I'm gonna just find the outro audio. This might be one of, if not the last times we're using StreamYard. So that might be one of the last outros with this. So we'll see. But if you do want to help support the show, patreon.com or check out the PayPal if you want to do a one-time donation. But almost on the principle, I don't want to stay with StreamYard. Like, it's like that's such robbery to just like raise it by 50%. So, but I understand their business, things change, and they've added a lot of features. So I get it. It's just it's a lot. So we'll see. Anyways, it's been great hanging out with you all, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.